Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor to present to you the United States Secretary of Labor, Tom Perez.
Yes.
Yeah. Good morning. Buenos días. Es un honor estar aquí con ustedes, con los líderes de la ciudad de Nueva York y la otra gente que están aquí. It's an honor to be here today with the mayor. I apologize for having a little raspy throat. I had a little throat surgery about 10 days ago, and so I'm still recovering, but I want to make sure you know that my support for this mayor and the leadership of your speaker is absolutely full-throated. Because when it comes to making sure that everybody who works hard and is working a full-time job should never have to live in poverty, that's what we're about as a nation. That's our value set as a nation.
Amen.
And you know, and President Obama said, I am not only going to be advocating for fair wages at a federal level, but we are going to be working with every state and local leader across this country who is going to do the same, working together to make sure that we have middle-class security, that we pay a fair wage for a fair day's work, and that we put our values into action. So I am here for one simple reason, which is to give, on behalf of President Obama, our unwavering support for the leadership of the mayor and the speaker and everybody around here who is moving forward on this living wage executive order. It is so great to be back here, by the way. You know, yo soy dominicano, nací en Buffalo. Mis padres, hace tan, calor en Buffalo como Santo Domingo. Es porque ellos movieron allí. My parents moved to Buffalo because the weather was so similar. And but my mother grew up in Washington Heights, graduated from George Washington High School, and this is always home. New York City always provided that. And really, it is an honor to be here today with you, Mayor, to celebrate your remarkable leadership that is rewarding hard work and fair wages. And ensuring that fair wages exist for working people is really the centerpiece of President Obama's agenda to expand opportunity for all. He believes in building an economy that works for everyone, where prosperity is broadly shared and everyone has a chance to succeed. He believes that men and women who work full-time in the wealthiest nation on earth should never have to live in poverty. But yet, we see that. I speak to people who are making choices between a gallon of milk and a gallon of gas. I remember the guy I spoke to recently who said, there's no dignity in work when you work a 40 and 50-hour week and you still have to get your food from the pantry. Mm-hmm. We can do better than that in America. And that's why the president... That's why the president has been calling on Congress to raise the minimum wage from $7.25 an hour to $10.10 an hour. It's been more than 5 years since the minimum wage was raised, and the minimum wage is worth 20% less than it was in the early 80s. Imagine if you're going to take a job, wherever, whether it's on Wall Street or whether it's on Main Street, and I told you got to take a 20% pay cut from what you were making when Ronald Reagan was president. You couldn't do it because your bills haven't gone down 20%. And that's just not fair. That's not who we are as a nation. And that's why the president has been working so hard, because Americans deserve a raise. And it's not simply the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. I speak to businesses across this country, and they tell me the same thing everywhere. Raising the minimum wage is pro-business as well as pro-worker. I hear from business owner after business owner who says to me, Tom, the most important thing I need in my business is customers. This is a consumption-deprived recovery.
That's right.
A guy named Henry Ford about 100 years ago figured that out. He doubled the wages of people on the assembly line. People thought he was nuts. He was really smart, and he did okay. And he doubled the wages because, you know what? He had attrition of over 300%. If you pay crappy wages, you're not going to keep your workers. That's pretty common sense. And he understood that the people who make my product ought to be able to buy my product.
Right.
And so that is why he did that. And that's why so many other businesses are doing this. But despite this strong public support for raising the minimum wage, regrettably, some in the Republican leadership in Congress haven't quite gotten the memo. And a minority of Republicans in the Senate have blocked votes on the minimum wage. Speaker Boehner, or Leader Boehner, refuses to allow a vote. And I have no doubt that if we had a vote on comprehensive immigration reform in the House, if we had a vote on the minimum wage, they would pass.
Amen.
But the leader is thwarting the will not only of the majority of that body, but the majority of the American people. And so what do you do when that happens? Well, you do exactly what people like the mayor and the speaker and the borough president and everybody around me is doing. You take matters into your own hands. That's what you're doing, because people can't afford to be patient while they're making choices, unconscionable choices, between a gallon of milk and a gallon of gas. And that's why 13 states over the last year have raised their minimum wage after President Obama put the pedal to the metal. And over 20 local governments have been doing the same. And let's face it, when New York leads, as it continues to do under Mayor de Blasio's leadership, people across this country take notice. I know that because I travel this country, and they see what you're doing, Mayor, on paid leave. They see what you're doing on wage fairness. There is an absolute brush fire that's turned into a wildfire across this country, a wildfire of advocacy on behalf of workers, advocacy which stands for the notion that, you know what, we are a better country than this. We lead this world in so many different ways. We continue to be the strongest economy on the planet. We continue to be the strongest nation on the planet, but we must face the reality. We are not leading at the moment as a nation as a result of Republican intransigence in Congress on the issue of the minimum wage. I just got back from Australia, where we had a meeting of G20 labor ministers. The United States has the third lowest minimum wage of any of the industrialized countries. We can do better. And conservatives like David Cameron have raised the minimum wage. The government of Australia, the minimum wage is over $16 an hour. And that's a conservative government. The government of Canada, other places, have put in place progressive policies because they recognize that it's the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. They've put politics aside, they have put partisanship aside, and they have put people first. And we are not doing that in Washington as a result of the intransigence of a few Republicans in the Congress. And so the president has never hesitated to lead with his pen and with his phone. And the pen is running out of ink at the Department of Labor, so we make more pens, and the phone's ringing off the hook, and we continue to take those phones because it's all about fairness for workers. It's all about moving forward. And it's all about working with state and local governments who are indeed moving forward. And so, Mayor, I am here to give our absolutely full-throated support for your efforts here, because I can tell you your executive authorities make a difference in a huge way, because this is really not simply about and everything else. This is about people like Chantel to my right. This is why we get up out of bed in the morning. This is about making sure that Chantel and her family can have that basic covenant with America, that basic covenant which says, if you work hard and play by the rules, the sky's the limit. If you work hard and play by the rules, you're going to live a little better than your parents, and your kids are going to be a little bit better off than you. That covenant has been called into question, but not under this mayor's leadership. We are moving forward under this president's leadership, under the partnership between the president, the mayor, and other governors and mayors and county executives across this country. We are moving forward. We're bringing America back. We're moving in the right direction. We have more work to do. And the mayor's executive order this morning does just that. And so it is a great honor for me to turn the microphone over to Mayor de Blasio, a person who, in less than a year in office, has been an absolute champion and vanguard in closing opportunity gaps, addressing income inequality, and making sure that better bargain for America is a bargain that we will continue to uphold. So, déjame presentar el mayor de la ciudad de Nueva York, mi amigo, Mayor de Blasio.
Man, I would like to hear what he's like when he hasn't had throat surgery. Mr. Secretary, first of all, on behalf of the people in New York City, I present you with this Ricola to speed your recovery. I felt for you, and I really want to say a thank you. So many people here are excited that you're here with us. And the fact that you've been dealing with your throat problem, but it still mattered so much for you to be here and be a part of this is really something very humbling for all of us. You have a whole country to think about. You've got work you need to do everywhere. You went out of your way to come here and support what we're doing today, and that is really above and beyond. And you make us proud as New Yorkers, as Americans, because you're setting the kind of standard that we believe in. Let's thank Secretary Perez for all he is doing. The fact is, a lot of people around me worked very hard to elect and then re-elect President Obama. And when you hear the Secretary's words, it reminds you just how different things are. We have a labor secretary who is going all over this country, pushing localities and businesses to go farther, using those international examples to indicate where we need to be. Secretary Perez is one of the driving forces in the decision of the Obama administration to move for the 10-10 minimum wage, which we need to achieve here and we need to achieve all across this country, and will be transcendent. So I want to always remind people, I think sometimes in the challenges we face in our economy and public life, sometimes it's easy to get a little cynical. But I want to remind people elections really do matter. And an election made this man the labor secretary, and he is doing great things for us every day. So, Secretary, thank you so much. We're here in St. Mary's Park, and it's a reminder we're in a beautiful setting, surrounded by a wonderful neighborhood full of hardworking people. You're going to hear from Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito in a moment. She has the honor of representing this district, and she knows, I know, these are good, hardworking people, give their all every day for their families. The challenge is they're giving their all and they're not getting far enough. That's the state of affairs in this city and all over the country right now, and it's not acceptable. People are struggling. They're working harder and harder, and yet they're struggling to get by. The median household income, right where we're standing now, the median household income is roughly $20,000 a year. You do not need to be a math major to know that $20,000 a year doesn't cut it in New York City. And people have to do better, and it's our job to take us forward. Increasing the minimum wage nationally would be the single best solution. We need to act everywhere we can. We have to push for national change, but as the Secretary said so powerfully, when we don't see the movement we need because, unfortunately, of our Congress, we act locally. We push the spectrum. We do what we can do for our people and also send a message that we need something better for all of us. And we're going to work for that, not just nationally, we're going to work for that in our state capital of Albany, where the time is right for the change we need on minimum wage. I want to acknowledge, please, you can clap for that. We'll have more to say on that. I want to acknowledge the members of my administration who have really put immense energy into the question of using every tool we have to increase wages and benefits for people in this city. This is on the minds of the leaders of this administration literally every single day. Led by our Deputy Mayor for Housing and Economic Development, Alicia Glenn. I want to thank her. I want to thank Kyle Kimball, President of the Economic Development Corporation. You can keep clapping. Maria Torres Springer, Commissioner of Small Business Services. Julie Menon, Commissioner of the Department of Consumer Affairs, which will be in charge of enforcement on this living wage executive order. We have leaders of labor and advocates for these changes who have been tireless. I want to thank Jill Ferrillo, the Executive Director of New York State Nurses Association, Julie Kushner, Director of United Automobile Workers Region 9A, and you're going to be hearing from a few other of these leaders in just a moment. We have a lot of elected officials who have joined us in support. This has been an area of real unity. Our elected officials believe we need these changes, and they're doing something about it. I want to thank them. I want to thank Carmen Arroyo, Assembly Member. We're in her district, too. I want to thank my dear friend, and we work together constantly on issues like this, Assembly Member Luis Sepulveda of the Bronx. I want to thank State Senator Dan Squadron of Brooklyn. We're glad he came to the Bronx to support this. See, Brooklyn is in the House today. Councilmember Matthew Eugene of Brooklyn, thank you for being here. Councilmember Robert Cornegy, Chair of the Small Business Committee. And council members from the Bronx are here, too. See, it's a Brooklyn-Bronx thing today. Andy King, council member from the Bronx, thank you. Fernando Cabrera, council member from the Bronx. Yes, Danique Miller, you're here, too, from Queens. Okay, you ruined my symmetry, but I'm glad you're here. BB&Q. That's right, BB&Q. And you're going to hear from some of our other elected leaders in just a moment who have been leaders in this effort. Today, we're doing something, I want to emphasize, we're doing something that takes effect today. We're doing something urgent that takes effect today. When I walk over to that desk and sign the executive order, it takes immediate effect. It says the rules change today because people are struggling. They need help now. And that's why it's so urgent. We have to act now. Today I'm signing a sweeping expansion of the city's living wage standard. Yay. It's time to go farther. Effective immediately, we will raise wages through the living wage standard to $13.13 per hour. $13.13 for those without benefits, $11.50 for those who have health insurance and other benefits. This applies to employees, I should say, of large groups of employers who do business with the city, meaning there's a lot of companies that do business with the city that come to the city for subsidies. We think if you want a subsidy, if you can prove the need for a subsidy, we want to help you achieve your goals, but we have a standard we hold. We need to make sure people are paid a living wage. That's a fair exchange for that subsidy. What it means, let me put this in real terms. What this means is the difference between the $8 an hour minimum wage right now and the $13.13 that will take effect immediately for those employees of companies that get subsidies going forward. That is a difference of over $10,000 in earnings a year. $10,000. Someone who would have made $16,000, not enough to get by, will now make over $27,000 a year. And that's a difference maker. Any project that gets over $1 million in city subsidy qualifies. We're going to reach the retail tenants, for example, of those projects. This is something that needed to be expanded and reached. We're doing that through this executive order. We are going to reach people who work in food services, in retail, in construction. There's a whole range of people who will be reached, and it will make a difference for them. 18,000 people, 18,000 families will be reached by this executive order by the next 5 years. Over 5 years, our projection is 18,000 people will benefit, meaning 18,000 families will have a better standard of living. 4,000 of those will be in the food and retail sector, where there's long been a need to increase wages and benefits. Now, this is one part of a bigger strategy. It's an important part, but it's one part of a bigger strategy. We have to move united from here to Albany, New York, to raise the state minimum wage to $10.10. We need to do that starting this January. And with that, we need to secure indexing of the minimum wage. And with that, we need to secure a commitment that localities within that state guideline have the ability to go farther. Those are the crucial building blocks of change and progress. It can happen in Albany. It will happen in Albany if we take this momentum and we build upon it. Secretary Perez made a crucial point. The facts are on our side. The Henry Ford example really needs to be looked at, because this was an example of what we should be doing, giving people a kind of wage they can live on and they can purchase products with, which fuels the whole economy, as the Secretary laid out. We've been moving away from that standard steadily over years. Over years, we've been falling farther and farther behind. In terms of buying power, the current $8 minimum wage in this state is lower than the minimum wage of 1964. So you go back in time 50 years, the law was actually giving people more buying power. We keep falling behind, and this has got to be the breakpoint moment. We say we won't fall behind any longer. I'll give you an example of what this minimum wage does to people. A single parent working full-time at minimum wage in New York City today makes just $270 above the poverty level. So sadly, a minimum wage job means you're on the verge of poverty, even if you're working a full work week. That's unacceptable. We have to have a minimum wage standard that means something. And this action today is part of not only helping those 18,000 families, but building momentum toward the next goal. You heard the kind of choices Secretary Perez laid out, the kind of choices people make. You're going to hear in a few moments from someone who's such a powerful example, both of the challenge we face, but also of the willingness to fight for change. Chantel Walker-Sylvester, we are so proud of you and so glad you're here. Yes. Yes, she is from Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. That is true. Chantel's going to tell you her story, but I can tell you one thing. She's worked nonstop. She's worked, and she's worked for years, and still has made only $8.50 an hour and lives paycheck to paycheck and has to constantly make those choices. Do you pay the rent? Do you pay for a Metro card? Do you pay for food? This is the biggest, wealthiest city in the country. And a good, hard-working woman has to make those choices every single month. And that's not what we came here to continue. We came here to change that. It has to change, and it will change now. A lot of people say, does any one of these actions change enough? The answer is no. All the actions have to move together. Living wage, minimum wage, affordable housing plan, all the things we do to lighten the burdens of parents like full-day pre-K and after school, all these pieces have to come together as a whole to really start to affect the income inequality crisis and to really start to affect people's standard of living. But we are devoted to moving on each and every front. You know, 8 decades ago, the minimum wage was a new idea. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt of New York, I am proud to say, passed the first minimum wage law through Congress. And he put forward a simple notion at that time. He said passing the minimum wage would, quote, extend the frontiers of social progress. Think about that notion. Something that was unheard of, but was needed to respond to the crisis of people's lives. So in the 1930s, they had the vision and the energy and the inspiration and the boldness to say they were going to extend the frontiers of social progress. We need to be at least as good as our forebears. We need to extend those frontiers a lot farther and reach so many people who deserve it, so many hardworking people. I want you to hear from some of my colleagues who have been central to this fight. I want you to hear from Chantel in a moment, but let me just say a couple words in Spanish. Seguimos trabajando para expandir oportunidades, reducir la desigualdad y construir una Nueva York más justa. Como lo había prometido, estoy aumentando el salario mínimo a $13.13 por hora para los miles de trabajadores de empresas que tienen negocios con la ciudad. Sounds even better in Spanish. And with that, someone who will offer you her vision in both English and Spanish with equal eloquence, our partner in all of the actions we are taking to address income inequality and to lift up everyday New Yorkers. And I want to thank the Speaker and the City Council for having set the pace that we're building upon today. But no one fights harder for these changes than Speaker Melissa Mark-Viverito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and it's a pleasure to be along with my colleagues that have been mentioned that you've highlighted. I want to just say something. I'm a real fan of our Secretary of Labor. Those of you that may not know Secretary Perez, prior to being the Secretary of Labor, he was at the Department of Justice. I'm known for being a little bit of a Twitter freak. I used to tweet about the decisions he used to make at the Department of Justice because he has really stood strong and has an incredible trajectory. So I'll say here publicly, I'm the first one to sign up to recruit you to be our next Attorney General and continue to build on the work of our great Attorney General, Eric Holder. Thank you for joining us here. No, he doesn't have to say anything. It's on me.
I second it.
So, no, but I think it's a real pleasure to be standing here with our mayor and our Secretary of Labor, who really made the case as to the importance and the magnitude of the decision that is being taken today. When we talk about, and he highlighted that of all the industrialized nations, we have the third lowest minimum wage, and then we bring it down at a granular level where we have in New York City the greatest income inequality in this nation. It really speaks to really the importance of being able to leverage and harness the power of this municipal government to better the lives and impact the lives in a positive way of everyday New Yorkers. And Chantel has been an incredibly powerful voice as an activist, as an organizer, and a leader in the fast food worker movement, but really talking about her case in particular. Thank you for putting yourself out there on the front line and really helping us understand more fully the impact of these decisions. So we're in the Bronx today in my district to send a very simple and direct message that New York City will take care of its workers. Amen. We're a city that is dedicated to lifting people up. We are a city that is forward-thinking. And we're a city that's going to take on big challenges head-on. We've done so. This executive order builds on the good work of the New York City Council, which has a long history here. In 1996, the council passed the original prevailing wage law. That law provided a prevailing wage for certain building service workers, a defining moment for our city. In 2002, the council passed a law that created a living wage for home health care workers, temporary workers, and other workers contracted to work with the city. In 2012, we passed a law that provides a prevailing wage to building service workers at developments, which the city provides financial assistance, and at buildings that the city leases. And in 2012, we passed a law that provided living wage for workers in developments that receive financial assistance. That is the law that is being expanded on today. By raising wages for thousands of New Yorkers, this executive order will go a long way towards lifting families and changing trajectories. The laws we've passed have changed lives, and that's what this executive order will do. But we're not going to stop here. There's still much more work to be done to make sure that our workers get the compensation they deserve, which is why we continue to fight to raise the minimum wage at the state level and at the federal level. So whether it's advocating for local control of the minimum wage or fighting for hardworking New Yorkers, this council continues to be dedicated towards giving all New Yorkers a chance. We're proud to continue that today. I know my colleagues are very proud to stand here with our mayor in full support of this decision and look forward to the signing of the executive order. Very quickly in Spanish, estamos en mi distrito aquí en el Bronx hoy para mandar un mensaje sencillo pero directo, que nuestra ciudad cuidará a sus trabajadores. Somos una ciudad determinados que nuestra gente sobresalgan y logren éxito. Al subir los salarios de miles de neoyorquinos a través de esta orden ejecutiva, ayudará a las familias y cambiará las trayectorias para miles de trabajadores. Las leyes que el Consejo ha pasado ha cambiado vidas en el pasado y es precisamente la meta de esta orden ejecutiva. So I really want to thank the mayor. Le damos las gracias al alcalde and look forward to the signing of the executive order.
Thank you. Well, my last day as public advocate, I handed off the position to someone who I shared a lot of values and a lot of good history with. And one of the things I was particularly happy about was that Tish James has focused throughout her life on fighting inequality and dedicated herself, in particular as public advocate, to the fight against income inequality. And that is another one of the reasons why we're going to make progress in this city and this state. I'd like to welcome our public advocate, Tish James.
Thank you so much. First, Secretary Perez, and to all of my colleagues, and of course to all the labor unions, I want to first thank the union movement I want to thank you for the middle class. I want to thank you for championing the cause of working people all throughout this nation. 1199, DC 37, 32BJ, RWSDU, Working Families Party, DC 37, and CWA, and Communities for Change. We would not enjoy a weekend, we would not enjoy benefits, but for the union movement. The middle class and the union movement are inextricably tied together, and today we celebrate you. I also want to say that the greatest threat to our democracy and our economic recovery and stability is growing income inequality in this nation, in this city, and in this state. Let me also go on to say that I hope that as a result of this executive order, more women, more families will enjoy this beautiful park with their children so that they do not have to work 2 and 3 jobs, so that they can enjoy a day celebrating and enjoying this beautiful this park with their children. And that is why I commend Mayor de Blasio on signing today's living wage order, expanding the Fair Wages for New York Act to include jobs and projects that receive over $1 million in city subsidy. Today's executive order will guarantee living wages to previously exempt workers, such as employees of commercial tenants. Additionally, it will raise the hourly wage for workers who are not eligible to receive employee benefits from $11.90 to $13.13. These actions go far to move us towards a more economically equitable society, and hope that today is the first step in our journey towards true living wages for all New Yorkers. As the rising cost of living prices, so many low and middle class New Yorkers out of their neighborhoods and out of the city altogether, it is now a time to recognize that the momentum is building in our ongoing movement to translate the mayor's bold and ambitious agenda into the city's ability and other municipalities around the state to have local control and to set its own minimum wage. That's what we will do. So Albany, we're coming for you. And so I look forward to working with the administration to achieving living wage throughout New York City, and I thank everyone today for today's celebration.
Thank you very much, Tish. And before I call up the Borough President, just want to welcome and thank Councilmember Idanis Rodriguez, who has joined us. Thank you for being a part of this. So, Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr. Felt this issue so deeply, fought for years for a breakthrough. And I really want to give him credit as being one of the voices, sometimes must have felt a little lonely, but a voice of persistence and energy, believing that we would and we had to go farther on living wage. And it's an honor to be in the Bronx to make this announcement. Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr.
Hey, Ruben. Wow. I know that it's a cloudy day today, but Mr. Secretary, I just wanted to welcome you to the Bronx, home of the Yankees, home where Derek Jeter played his entire career, home of El Condado de la Salsa, but we also have so many Dominicans here. We've surpassed Idani's district. So we're la próxima vez que visita Nueva York tiene que aceptar nuestra invitación para comer un mangú aquí en el Bronx, okay? It's a cloudy day, ladies and gentlemen, but boy, is it sunny, right? And ladies and gentlemen, let's give a strong round of applause to our mayor for doing this executive order today. Mr. Mayor, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for hearing the cries and the call of so many individuals that are here today and so many thousands that are not. Thank you, just like President Obama, for showing all of us the civic lesson. Listen, that it matters, ladies and gentlemen, who is in office. It matters who we elect to the different levels in office. Sometimes people say, I don't want to vote. Sometimes people say, I'm staying home, it doesn't matter. But the fact of the matter is that we had a coalition 4 years ago. This is also the home. The Bronx is also where this debate started over a project in the west area of the Bronx. And so many people said that it couldn't happen. And we work with Stu Applebaum and with RWDSU and 1199 and all of the clergy and all of the activists who are here today and all of the men and women of labor. And working with the city council, I know that You say, Mr. Mayor, perhaps I felt lonely, but I did not, because so many people from Brooklyn and from Staten Island and from Queens and from Manhattan, you were all there every step. It was a broad coalition. Give yourselves a strong round of applause. It was such a beautiful, broad coalition. And we were old and young and tall and short and black and white and Asian. And we came from all corners of the city, and we came together. But one thing that we didn't have, even though the bill passed in the city council, we did not have a mayor to sign it into law. And so it had to be overridden in the city council. And so that's why I tell you that it matters. And we did it all, ladies and gentlemen, because we believe in a simple notion. In this city, the wealthiest city of the world, that if you want charity, then you have to be charitable. Hello. If you're a developer. If you're a developer and you want a public benefit, then your project has to benefit the public. Right. Simple notion. We are talking about projects that receive $1 million or more in our tax dollars. And so, Mr. Mayor, what you're doing is that you're showing, once again, that when you're speaking of tax dollars, we, as the investors, we want a good rate of return on our investment. And what better return to have than to have a single mother or a family, as Tish James just mentioned earlier, be able to provide for their kids, but also be able to experience the most precious thing in the world, which is family time in the park. That's right. To Melissa Mark Viverito, gracias por su liderazgo. Gracias por ser una voz tan fuerte. Gracias por ser una mujer latina, representando a todas las mujeres aquí en la ciudad de Nueva York, sea latina o no sea latino. Señor alcalde, brevemente en el español le quiero dar las gracias por su liderazgo. El señor secretario, gracias por estar con nosotros en el condado de Papa Dios, el condado de la Salsa. A todos los que pelearon y lucharon. We've been vindicated. A todos ustedes que pelearon y lucharon por estos salarios dignos, le tenemos que dar la gracia a este joven, porque por fin tenemos a alguien en la alcaldía que sí representa a todos los neoyorquinos. Thank you all.
We've got 3 more speakers. We're going to do something exceptional here because the secretary has to get back to Washington. So I'm going to have asked the 3 next speakers to be as brief as you can be. I want to give the media, if they have any questions directly for the secretary, a chance to do that. Then I'm going to move over to sign. Then we're coming back and taking on-topic questions. So I want to now bring up 2 labor leaders who have really been a crucial part of this struggle. And I can't thank them enough for what they've done, and starting with Chris Shelton, who has been one of my dearest friends in labor and an exemplar of the efforts to organize people and get them the wages and benefits they deserve. Chris Shelton of the Communication Workers of America.
Good afternoon, sisters and brothers. I'll be very short. You know, this is an auspicious day in our city's history. 1313 is wonderful. It's not enough. We need more. And we also, Mr. Secretary, I have a message for the president. Yes. If he wants to raise the minimum wage, as we all do, then what he ought to do, and I'm sure it would happen if he signed an executive order lowering Congress's wages to the minimum wage. Yes. I bet you it would take about 5 minutes for them to raise the minimum wage. So, brothers and sisters, this is because we elected a mayor who said that he was for working people, and this absolutely proves it. Thank you, Brother Bill.
All my fellow leaders, take a lesson from Chris Shelton. He gets in there, he hits a home run, he gets out. Well, I think your quote will be quoted. I think that's going to get some coverage. Stuart Applebaum fought year in and year out, believed that this had to happen. It was not easy. I remember a number of rallies and meetings and all the things along the way, but you stuck with it. This is a day of vindication for you and so many activists who stuck with this cause. Stuart Applebaum, president of RWDSU. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Mayor, I want to tell you, it warms my heart to be here. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've come full circle. The citywide living wage campaign began several years ago right here in the Bronx with the support of the borough president, Ruben Diaz, and my union was proud to be at the forefront of the fight. Retail workers, clergy, community leaders, and elected officials came together to say the city must do more to create jobs that lift low-wage workers out of poverty instead of keeping them trapped in poverty. Our campaign defeated intense opposition from Mayor Bloomberg, the real estate industry, and Wall Street in order to pass living wage legislation in 2012. And now, with this living wage executive order, we are taking another major step forward. Mayor de Blasio said he would do a living wage executive order, and he's clearly kept his word, and everyone in the city should be grateful. I want to thank the mayor and his team for working to expand and strengthen the living wage law we helped enact a couple of years ago. This new living wage executive order will improve the lives of thousands of low-wage workers, especially in retail. It will ensure that retail tenants and subtenants in development projects help reduce poverty instead of perpetuating it. Make no mistake, that is what real progressivism looks like. It's measurable, it's tangible. Indeed, this living wage executive order is a national model for other cities and states around the country to adopt. We're very glad to be working closely with the mayor to bring it to fruition. Mayor de Blasio has made the fight against income inequality a focus of his administration, the focus of his administration. And this living wage executive order will help bring more equity and fairness to our city's economy. There is no question that creating a living wage economy will benefit and strengthen all of us. If we transform poverty into opportunity and security, we can transform the future of our city. Thank you. Thank you.
Because of time crunch, we're going to make another alteration because we're very flexible. Friends in the media, if you have any questions for Secretary Perez, he's got a few minutes before he has to get to his flight. We'll go to Chantel right after that. But I want to just see if there's anything from the media for Secretary Perez before he has to go back to Washington. Please.
Mr. Secretary, you mentioned an intransigent Congress that has required the president to take some executive actions. Here in New York, we have a city council legislature that's in line with the mayor's vision. What do you make of the fact that he's taking executive action, even though the city council probably backs him and could have done it through the legislative process?
Well, I'll leave that for the mayor. I know the mayor and the city council and the leaders all around us have been working very collaboratively on these issues, and they have a shared interest in the following, which is making sure that when you give out city dollars, whether it's subsidies or what, it's a privilege. It's not a right to do business with the city government. And with that privilege comes responsibility. And what I observed, listening to the speaker, the mayor, the borough president, everyone, is a shared understanding of that and a shared understanding of how can we do this as fast as possible. Because for people like Chantel, we cannot afford to wait. We need help right now. And so I applaud these efforts. I applaud the way in which they are working in a collaborative fashion to move forward. And if we had the level of collaboration in Washington with the House leadership that I see here in New York, we'd be a much better America.
Amen. 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 Any other? Well done. Any other questions for the secretary before he has to go? Going once, twice.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day.
Ya empezó la campaña. Ya empezó la campaña.
Thank you so much.
Heroes welcoming you. We'll go back to our regularly scheduled program. Chantel Walker Sylvester is someone who lives these issues every day, but she's also someone who fights for change. And it is very hard to keep working and keep working and keep working and not experience the fairness you should. Some people could get discouraged. Some people could not care any longer. Chantel cares and is doing something about it. She is a model for us all. Let me introduce to you Chantel Walker Sylvester.
Thank you for the warm welcome, Mayor de Blasio, and everybody here. I'm happy to see so many familiar faces. Shout out to my brothers and sisters in the movement, labor movement, yes. Right, as y'all know, my name is Chantel Walker. I'm on the behalf of the fast food workers of New York. I'm so honored to be here with Mayor de Blasio. 1313 will be a great improvement for people's lives. It will be a great help for people that don't have what they need every day. It will be really greatly appreciated. For this increase, it will give me a better quality of life. I will be able to pay my bills without a struggle, just on a daily basis. Not sometimes, but all the time.
Amen.
Buying Metro cards are a struggle, and daily necessities right now is an everyday struggle. We have fought so long. We have fought so long to get to this point, and we're going to continue to fight. 1313 is great, but I'm still fighting for 15 in the union.
Amen.
Our lives will change with this type of income, because we will be able to buy clothes on our backs, have food for our kids, take our kids out, birthdays, holidays, spend time with our family, and enjoy the fruits of our labor. And most of all, we want life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thank you.
Chantel got the final word, and I think it was the right final word. All right, we're going to sign this executive order, and then we will come back and take questions on this topic. Please gather around, everyone. Okay, please. Brother, thank you. Anyone wants to stick around for Q&A, feel free. All right. We're assembling here. Ready? Everyone assembled? Okay. We will now take questions from the media. Yes, sir.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. There's pockets of city workers, crossing guards, cafeteria workers who are earning less than this new requirement. Just wondering, is it fair to ask private companies to do something for their workers that the city is unwilling to do for its own workers?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, when we subsidize a private company, we do expect a high standard. You heard Secretary Perez's point about that. It's something I think understood nationwide. So this is a standard that we hold from this point on. Literally, as of the stroke of that pen, this is now the standard in New York City for any new developments that we subsidize. Second of all, we are moving for a higher minimum wage for all workers, public and private. We intend to aggressively approach that issue and achieve that change in Albany coming up in January. That change will affect everything in the labor dynamics of this city. So I think the fact is we want to address that issue holistically, and we have the tools to do it now. And that's the best way to handle it, to change it for everyone.
The city already has the power to pay its own workers more if it chooses. Why do you have to wait for the...
Again, I differentiate that a subsidy is a special act where you're providing a benefit and you expect something back for it. The way we want to handle our overall dynamics is by adjusting the laws for everyone. Other questions? Yes?
I'm wondering, you were in the city council for a long time and you're a very vocal member. I'm wondering why you're not letting this go through the traditional legislation process in the council so that members can voice their opinions on it, have a traditional hearing.
Okay, this is a matter of urgency, and we believed it was right to put this into play immediately because as we speak, there are development deals coming together that this could affect, and we want to make sure that we have this new opportunity for working people. It's very consistent with the council's vision. I mean, I think it's a different dynamic when you see the council has already acted and shown its intent. We've been in regular conversation with the council leadership. We're all on the same page about where this needs to go. And it was important to act in the way that could get the most immediate effect. Oh, well, you before. Grace.
Just following up on that, I'm wondering if we could hear from the speaker on that. Since there is a lot of sort of shared policy priorities between the council and the mayor, is this something going forward that we can expect that there won't be legislative hearings on significant changes in policy in the city? And why is this? Why did you agree to this executive order? I mean, the mayor's saying this is an urgent thing they wanted to enact immediately, but Mayor, you were talking about this during the campaign. This could have been introduced in the council months ago and enacted today.
This, there are legislative requests that are still in, and our process continues. I think I laid out the strong history that this council has to be supportive of prevailing and living wage laws. So this is just along the same lines of the thinking as the mayor has indicated. And so we are excited because we are impacting thousands of workers moving forward. That is the end goal here. That is what we are about uplifting individuals. And the quickest way to get there, we will do that. It goes along the lines of our vision and our philosophy as a council, and we're going to be supportive of this. But it doesn't take away from pieces of legislation that are in. We're going to continue to follow a process, take a look at it, see if there's ways that this could be expanded in other sectors or in other ways. It doesn't take away from the role of the council moving forward.
I was wondering, you said that it was a matter of urgency. Why didn't you sign an executive order in January, February, or since you started?
Well, we obviously intended to early on, and then we looked at some of the complexities and we looked at some of the possibilities, and we decided that we, first of all, had to get it right, and second of all, had to go farther. Original intention had been to take the previous standards, the previous wage standards, and apply them to more people. The deeper we got into our research, the more we decided those wage standards were outmoded and we had to go farther. So it took time to get it right, but we knew that the moment we got it right, it would have a big impact on thousands of families and it would take effect immediately. So our goal was to get it right and reach as many people at the highest wage we could.
Mayor, what's your message to small businesses who might support the idea of paying workers more, but believe in doing this you're hurting them?
First of all, we have seen over and over again that when we act to improve people's wages and benefits, it leads to a more just society. It leads to more buying power for our citizens, which help our small businesses, and it actually shows that there's great economic stability in making these actions. You know what is damning for our society and for small business is when everyone's falling behind. That's what we've been experiencing. But when people are actually economically strong and able to spend, that's what's good for everyone. So, you know, we've gone down this road with paid sick leave and so many other issues where we heard that there will be so many negative outcomes. Every time we've taken these actions, things actually become better. We've seen it all around the country. Commissioner Julie Menon is here from Consumer Affairs. She's researched what's happened on paid sick leave around the country. She, by the way, in charge of enforcement on paid sick leave, also in charge now of enforcement on living wage. Time and time again, the naysayers were proven wrong. Economies, local economies became stronger. Small businesses did well with these additional protections for their workers. Second point, I think everyone as taxpayers, as small business owners are taxpayers too, we want our money's worth. If we provide a subsidy, we want to make sure that we're getting fairness in return. And to ask, for example, a lot of big retail chains, which is in many cases the kind of stores you'll find in the developments that we have a subsidy arrangement with, to ask national retail chains to pay a decent wage to their workers while they're receiving a subsidy from us is eminently fair. Yes. Louder.
Not to locate in these city-backed developments because of these requirements and to go elsewhere. Do you think there's any risk of that?
No, I think there's a couple things going on. First of all, the desire of so many retailers to have a stronger presence in New York City is quite clear. You see it with your own eyes. You've seen huge changes over the last few years. This market is more and more desirable, and it's growing. I remind everyone here, part of what we're all doing together over here is preparing for a city that's going to have another 500,000 people in the coming decades. So this is an incredibly appealing place for retailers to be. The fact is, there's a subsidy involved. There's an opportunity to be a part of a development, a new development that is subsidized. That's very appealing to a lot of developers and a lot of retailers and other folks who would be tenants in those developments. So I think there's going to be plenty of demand. And we just look at what's happened overall with our economy, and we're convinced that a lot of people will want to participate. Please.
Given that the governor put the kibosh on your pre-K tax a couple months ago, are you still confident that he's on board with your move to raise the minimum wage?
He said it himself. And I remind you that we got to where we needed to get on pre-K with the governor's help. You know, there's different roads to an outcome. We got to the outcome we needed, and now we have over 51,000 kids in pre-K as we speak right now in New York City. I'm very satisfied with how that came out. The governor said very clearly this spring that he supports the minimum wage increase, he supports indexing, he supports local opportunity to adjust minimum wage within the context of the state law. He said it repeatedly, and I take him at his word, and I look forward to following through with a new Democratic Senate.
Isn't that the mayor's response? The city
Yes.
Can you talk a bit about Hudson Yards and that it will in fact eliminate basically the exemption for them?
Well, going forward, and Alicia Glenn and Kyle Kimball are here, and they can speak to details, but any new development in Hudson Yards would be covered. You want to fill in the blank?
Sure. So currently, projects in Zone 3 of Hudson Yards were exempt from the living wage law, and so it's really affecting projects in that specific zone. And there's a few projects in that zone that are yet to be induced. So that's the specific area, the geographic area that it's being affected to. Of course, the mayor early in the administration with Alicia Glenn was able to get Related to voluntarily agree to pay living wage for its workers and its tenants in the building. So that was an early win in Hudson Yards, and this is just extending that idea.
Say what Zone 3 is.
Sorry, Zone 3. Zone 3 is the area. I think it's bound by 11th and 12th Street between 11th and 12th Avenues between the 31 and 34. So it's a small area.
Yes.
So there's a lot of things going on, and the unions have helped a lot. But what happens with those people who are not unionized yet, or that will not be anytime soon? How are they going to be affected?
I think that's a very important question. I'm someone who believes in the power of the union movement and believes that organizing people into unions, as the public advocate said, is foundational to creating a stronger society. But the great reality of living wage actions and minimum wage actions is that they allow you to reach people whether they're in a union or not, and they strengthen the buying power, they strengthen the earning power of the workforce. So I'm very, very straightforward about the fact. I think every time someone gets organized into a union, it's good for our overall society. But in the meantime, this is lifting living standards for thousands of people. Yes.
I'm curious whether the city charter sets any limits on the mayor's power when writing these executive orders, and are you sure that this doesn't?
Yes, we are sure. We are. Section 8, I believe it is. We'll have the law department can helpfully show you if you'd like. Yes, this is within the mandate given to the mayor under the city charter.
Marginally on topic, but I think
stay marginally. We're watching your margins.
I'm confident you might want to respond to this. Dean Skelos was on the radio today.
It's Sally's birthday? Is that true?
It is.
Happy birthday, Sally. And that's the answer to your question.
Topic is a birthday present.
That's right.
So,
no.
Dean Skelos on the radio today was asked about your Albany agenda and, in relation to your attempts to turn the Senate Democratic, and he called it, quote, dangerous and the worst thing that could happen to this state. And we'd just like your reaction to that first story.
I think helping working people reach the middle class is what the state needs. So if somehow Senator Skelos thinks it's dangerous that people will get better wages and benefits, I don't understand that. I think we need to uplift our working people. They're struggling. And right now we have an opportunity to act here in this city. So we're acting with every tool we have to help working families. We need to do that across the state of New York, and that's why we need a Democratic state Senate majority. Thank you, everyone.